Abraham Lincoln once said, "Nearly all men can stand adversity, but if you want to test a man's character, give him power." Rankings. This is Locked On Big 12.
You are Locked On Big 12, your daily podcast on the Big 12 Conference, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Monday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Big 12. I'm Drake Toll from ESPN Central Texas. Thank you for making Locked On Big 12 your first listen every single day. I did wear a Baylor hat today because I finally feel confident enough that they're so bad that this little bit of favoritism can't affect the show whatsoever. Let's bring you the power rankings today. Fire the coach. Somebody's got to get fired. I mean, it happens in every conference at the end of every season. Not everybody's safe. Who's going to get fired? We'll answer that in the second segment. And the Big 12 champs, not who you think they will be. It's not going to be Texas. It's not going to be Oklahoma. The Big 12 is nuts. Power rankings, though, this week. Look, not as much shakeup as you might think, but let's start with the obvious. Oklahoma is no longer the number one team in the Big 12 after their loss on the road to Kansas. This is, in my book, in the Big 12 book, hear me out with this. And this is what you bring to the water cooler today at work or tomorrow at work when they're talking about, OU's terrible now. No, this is actually a quality loss. This loss to Kansas is a Big 12 quality loss, a top 25 team. They just played a top 25 team. That's where Kansas is now on the road and fell in that game. This wasn't a fluky deal like, oh, wow, Oklahoma, they'd win this game 99 times out of 100 like that Boise State game a while ago. This was a good Kansas team beating Oklahoma and giving Texas number one in the power rankings. Number two, 41-0. 41-0. They just beat the same Houston team that gave Texas a run for its money. Kansas State is, you ready? The hottest team in the Big 12 right now. Kansas State is the hottest team in the Big 12 right now. I know you could argue Iowa State. You could argue Oklahoma State. You could argue Kansas. I'm also, if you're watching on YouTube, I realize that number 5, Oklahoma State, they're labeled as Kansas. This is a Kansas State team that I'm going to call the hottest team in the Big 12 right now. If I had to pick a Big 12 champion today, it would be the Wildcats. They're number 2 in the Big 12 power rankings. I'd make them number 1, but let's be honest, it's Texas. Number 3, Oklahoma. Kansas cannot trounce Oklahoma here in the power rankings because OU has that one loss. Still the Destiny Big 12 championship odds for OU better than that of Kansas, who has 2 losses in Big 12 play. I'm going to go OU at 3. And another big reason why we can't drop OU too much or can't bring Kansas up too much further. You'll be shocked to see they're at 6 in my power rankings with Iowa State 4, Oklahoma State at 5, Kansas at 6. The reason we can't bring them up more is because Oklahoma State and Iowa State have been so good. There are so many teams in this conference in that top half that have been not streaky, but now consistently good. So the power rankings, let's just go right through those top 6. Texas at 1, Kansas State 2, Oklahoma 3, Iowa State 4, Oklahoma State 5, and Kansas at 6. Again, Kansas being at 6 might feel really low, but as it sits, when we talk teams and what they've done for us recently, we already know that Oklahoma State beat Kansas. We also know that Oklahoma State beat Kansas State. But I'm giving distance to these games. And the fact that Oklahoma State's won so many games in a row and Iowa State, OSU has 4 straight wins and Iowa State has 3 straight wins. Again, I know the Kansas win was massive, but I still have them at 6 right now because I have a lot of faith in what Iowa State has put together with Rocco Beck. I have a lot of faith in what Oklahoma State has put together, not with Alan Bowman, but with Ollie Gordon II. I am not ashamed to have Kansas at 6 despite a win against Oklahoma. The big reason why, I'm going to continue into this conversation later in the show, is because I don't believe in a lot of separation between 1 and 6. Even 1 and 6, I know Texas blew out Kansas, but at this point in the season, without Malik Murphy, despite how good they looked against BYU, especially defensively, I do believe that if Kansas and Texas played again tomorrow in Lawrence, it would at least be a good football game. And let's go through the other teams in this 6. If Kansas State played Iowa State, that's a great game. If Iowa State played Oklahoma State, that's massive. If Kansas played Oklahoma, we just saw how that went down. If Kansas State played Texas, as we're going to see, right? All 6 of those games feel like one-score lines going into whatever game that would be. That's why I have those as my 6. At number 7, there is no number 7. That is where I put the gap. The big gap. You remember you could go to the baby gap, you could go to the real gap. This ain't the baby gap. This is a big gap. between where Kansas is and where West Virginia is. Now, West Virginia being that 7th place team here in the power rankings, I want to unpack that gap a little bit because you might be a West Virginia fan and you're upset. You're upset to see yourself behind that chasm because you only have 2 losses in Big 12 play. You could still go to the Big 12 championship, but with that Houston loss, the trajectory of the team, you did just beat UCF, but they are winless in Big 12 play. Once again, and I don't think I'm crazy for not trusting Neil Brown yet, I need a second. I need a second on this one before I can say West Virginia is going to have a shot at a Big 12 championship game appearance later in the season. I need to just take a deep breath and leave West Virginia behind the gap until they beat BYU, until they give Oklahoma a run. I mean, if West Virginia is able to close out a game, a night game against BYU, they trend up. They trend ahead of the gap. If they're able to beat Oklahoma, they're really in the conversation for a Big 12 championship. But right now, I have West Virginia at 7. At 8, night BYU. Maybe the scariest team in the Big 12 is night BYU. We really get to see what defines night BU this week. Night BYU. Is it 6 p.m. Mountain Time? Is it 7? Is it 8? Is it 5? When does night BYU kick in? If this week, BYU, who plays a game at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, comes out and is terrible before 6 p.m., awful in the first half, and then wins the game against West Virginia, we'll know where the threshold is and that night BYU truly is a different animal. They're at 8, night BYU specifically. At 9, TCU. Off week. Did you win the bye week? I don't know. Can you do that? At 10, Texas Tech. Both of those teams still, I'm going to reiterate what I've said for weeks now, disappointing. The right word for both of those would be disappointing. For TCU to just be so lackadaisical in its performance against Kansas State, for Texas Tech to have been so bad against BYU, each of those teams has not given me what I expected in Big 12 play, and that is vying for a Big 12 championship. Texas Tech at 3 and 5, TCU now at this point, out of the Big 12 championship, Big 12 championship conversation. I guess what I'm trying to go for here. Those two teams disappointing. 11, Houston. You'll notice I have them above Baylor. They're above an old Big 12 team. Houston, despite a 41-0 loss at 11. UCF at 12. John Rice Plumlee and company. JRP did not have a career week this week. He did not look great against West Virginia. I still think UCF, if they were to rematch against Baylor or to play Cincinnati, would win. That's why I have Baylor at 13. Man, it's time pretty soon to start having it's time to have that conversation about a coaching change in Waco. Baylor, for me, sits at 13, and then Cincinnati at 14, but they're not last. No, because once again this week, I give the last place team in the Big 12. That honor goes to daytime BYU. They are terrible. The offense is the worst in the conference. They can't run the ball. They can't throw the ball. The defense is fine. I have no problem with day BYU defense. I have no problem with night BYU defense. I have a problem with day BYU's offense. It is atrocious, and they are the worst team in the Big 12. Night BYU, middle of the pack. Day BYU, awful. Power rankings this week. Texas at 1, Kansas State at 2, Oklahoma at 3, Iowa State at 4, Oklahoma State at 5, Kansas at 6. Then a big gap before you get West Virginia at 7, night BYU at 8, TCU at 9, Texas Tech at 10, 11 Houston, 12 UCF, 13 Baylor, 14 Cincinnati, and 15 day BYU. So who do we fire? Who's in the hot seat? Who is squarely not on the hot seat? This is Locked On Big 12, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company. Athletic Brewing Company is the reason that I can drink all weekend long. I can drink on the show. I can drink at work because they are non-alcoholic beers. These brews are legit. You go in and they have over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, Goldens, Sours, and more. Great tasting, award-winning, and they beat full-strength beers in global competitions as well. They are fit for all times, like watching a big game or at your kid's game or tackling work or working out. That is Athletic Brewing Company. No hangovers ever. You can find them in stores. Went to HEB the other day, saw them. They're fastest growing non-alcoholic brewery in the U.S. Get on board now. Athletic Brewing Company, First-time customers use code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. Code LOCKEDON at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Near beer exclusions and conditions apply. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is where I go to make money. Because at Prize Picks, you can bet $10 and win $250. Prize Picks is the largest independently owned daily fantasy sports platform in North America. The easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. Instead of battling against thousands of other players, including pros and sharks, you pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch the winnings roll in. Saquon Barkley over 60 yards. Ching. Patrick Mahomes more than 2 passing touchdowns. Ching. Justin Jefferson for more or less than 100 yards. Ching. You just put all those together, turn $10 into $250, win 25 times your money. With Prize Picks reboot policy, your entries stay in play even if a player gets hurt in the first half of an NFL game or a college football top 25 matchup. That's right. If they don't return in the second half, that player is rebooted. Prize Picks is the only daily fantasy site that does that. So right now, go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first-time deposit match up to $100. prizepicks.com/LockedOnCollege. Use code LockedOnCollege for a first deposit match up to $100 at prizepicks.com. So, who are we firing in the Big 12? Let's start our Big 12 hot seat tier list with coaches that are squarely safe, no question. And the first one that I put on here is Steve Sarkisian. I know what you're probably thinking. Oh, that's not right. If that's what you sound like, I guess. Oh, that's not right. If Texas has a bad season, Steve Sarkisian's gone. I don't think gone. I have had Chris Del Conte on my show. I have talked to plenty of people around Texas. And UT could finish 5-7 next season based on what they did this season and still not fire Steve Sarkisian. Squarely safe, no question. Lance Leipold, also there in the squarely safe category. No question. Just beat Oklahoma, has beaten Oklahoma and Texas in his tenure as the head coach of Kansas. Like if you're the head coach at Texas Tech or TCU or Baylor, one of those classic Big 12 schools, and you've beaten Texas and Oklahoma both over the course of your tenure, that's cool. But to do it at Kansas, that's tough. That's tough. Lance Leipold, squarely safe right now. Chris Kleiman also in there. Kleiman, the same guy that 3 years ago Kansas State fans were talking about firing. There was a murmur of, oh, can he get it done? Oh, does he match the culture? He is squarely safe. And one you might be a bit confused about, as well as Steve Sarkisian that I put in squarely safe, is Kalani Sitake. There is no way to me that Kalani Sitake is fired at BYU. They could go 5-7 next season, 4-8 next season, and he would still have another year left. His seat would get hot, obviously, as it would for anybody, but Kalani Sitake is the answer for BYU right now from a cultural standpoint. And when you have a cultural leader who's also winning games, there's no reason to put that guy on any sort of hot seat, Kalani Sitake, in safely. Safe, but one bad year could spiral. In this category, I'm going to start with Mike Gundy. And I'll tell you that I also have Matt Campbell in here. And there are some people that are upset with that. Why would you have Mike Gundy, 18 straight bowl games? Why would you have Matt Campbell? He has been revolutionary for Iowa State. Both of these teams are in the top half of the Big 12. Iowa State at 4-1, Oklahoma State at 4-1 could vie for a Big 12 championship. This doesn't make any sense. I can understand why you'd say that, but I want to, let's all take off the recency bias glasses. Let's all take off the idea that Iowa State and Oklahoma State are so good this season. And remember back to 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, when people were saying Mike Gundy, Matt Campbell, it might be done. Matt Campbell was yelling at fans, almost getting in fights with fans after a loss to Ohio. Mike Gundy lost 33-7 to South Alabama, and fans said, that's it. It's done. The Gundy era is over. That was a month ago. Let's not freak out that I'm saying in a bad year, things could spiral, because it's true for both of those guys. You saw it this year, a month ago, when things looked like they were going to spiral in one season. They're both safe for sure, but one bad year, that could turn. Sonny Dykes is also here. He's not squarely safe, no question. If TCU goes 5-7 again next year, there's a chance there's a change in Fort Worth. For Oklahoma, Brent Venables, he should be squarely safe, right? You'd think he's squarely safe, but there's been a weird relationship between a lot of Oklahoma fans and Brent Venables as they go to the SEC, and a loss to Kansas is not going to help it. I find it so odd that Oklahoma has one loss this season, also beat Texas, and so many people are putting Brent Venables under the microscope now after one loss. Bad loss, according to Oklahoma fans, sure. It was a loss on the road to a top 25 team. They hated it. I've got Brent Venables as a guy who, if he goes 5-7 next season, might not be around. So again, safe, but one bad year could spiral you. That's Mike Gundy, Brent Venables, Matt Campbell, and Sonny Dykes. How about needs help soon or they're in trouble? This tier. I'm going to start with Joey McGuire. Now, I'm a big Joey fan. Like, I got the Baylor hat on today. I'm a big Joey fan. Was a big fan when he was at Baylor. He did unfollow me on Twitter when he left. That was kind of sad. But right now, especially after this whole Spitgate thing that was handled so oddly, I'm not going to put too much weight into it, but it's those little details as a head coach where you start to think, that's kind of weird. I don't really know if I love the way that guy handled that. Instead of apologizing on behalf of his player or taking responsibility, it was just deflect. And they're not winning games. You think about, how excited are you about the future of Texas Tech football? Well, I was really excited. I thought they were going to compete for a Big 12 title this year. They're 3-5. They might miss a bowl game in year 2 under McGuire. They can't figure out the offense. Zach Kitley has not been what he was advertised to be. Injuries have played a role, but look at other teams in the Big 12, like Texas or TCU, who've been on backup quarterbacks. Iowa State, whose starting quarterback was kicked off the team a couple weeks before the season. I don't know. You need help soon, Joey McGuire. So does Scott Satterfield. I think Scott Satterfield and Gus Malzahn, who are both in the needs help soon or they're in trouble category, they both have some time because they're new to the league, but you got to win at some point. I'm not seeing a lot of trajectory of winning. Like, recruiting's pretty good, but the on-the-field stuff's not. The play calling is questionable at best. They need some help or they're in trouble within a year or two for Scott Satterfield and Gus Malzahn. Now, could be fired at the end of the season. This includes Dave Aranda, Neil Brown, and Dana Holgerson. Dana Holgerson could be fired at the end of the week. I know it's insane for some of you to hear because he just got back from the Group of 5 into the Power 5. Give the guy a chance. It's bad out there, man. It's bad. For Neil Brown, he was so fired at the beginning of the season. Has he bought himself more time? Maybe at 5-3, but he's not recruiting at the level that West Virginia fans would like. He is still the worst head coach that West Virginia has had from a record standpoint since the 1970s. That doesn't get you just a free pass to keep doing what you're doing. Has he bought himself more time? I say 60-40, 60% chance he stays, 40% chance that he could be fired if things don't go well these last few weeks at the end of the season. And then Dave Aranda, I told you yesterday, I hate it because I really like the guy. I've been around him now since he got to Baylor, was there at his introductory press conference. I do not take any pleasure in saying this, but he should go at the end of the year. He will not. He will stay at Baylor. The money is too much, as is the case for a lot of coaches, not just in the Big 12, but across the country. He will stay, and it will be to Baylor's detriment long term. I'm just going to call it now. That's where the trajectory of the program is going under Dave Aranda. He should be let go at the end of the season. We come back, Big 12 champs. Not Texas, not Oklahoma, but this is Locked On Big 12. Today's show is brought to you by eBay Motors. eBay Motors is where I go because my car has issues constantly. If I want to get it fixed and get it fixed fast, eBay Motors is my place with a gajillion parts. Actually, 122 million for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Roof racks, exhaust kits, superchargers, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts, all the prices that you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home the win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. ebaymotors.com. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available to U.S. customers. I love the Big 12, and I love looking at the standings right now. It is mind-boggling. There are technically, at this juncture, on October 30th, we're pushing Halloween right now, and we still have 7 teams that can go to the Big 12 championship game. How many conferences can say, hey, yeah, we have 7 teams that are legitimate contenders? Now, I don't think West Virginia is going to get there. I don't know that Iowa State is going to get there. They've got a really tough gauntlet the rest of the way. I don't know if Kansas can keep the magic alive. But, hear me out, I don't know that they can't. We could. Oh, dude, think about this. Just close your eyes unless you're driving, or do. I don't know. Think about this. We could have a Kansas Big 12 championship game. It's not impossible. We could have an Oklahoma State, Iowa State Big 12 championship game. It's not impossible. We could have an Oklahoma, Kansas rematch in the Big 12 championship game. We could have a West Virginia, Oklahoma State Big 12 championship. That's how wild this league is. And you're going to hear from all these national people week in and week out. You know, I watch ESPN. I watch On3 24/7, and they don't talk about the Big 12 ever. Maybe I like that too, by the way. And I get, we talk TV ratings and how that could affect your conference and them staying alive moving forward. But I love the fact that we have the Big 12 and we know how nuts it is and we get to enjoy it and nobody else encroaches on that. This is our league. This is our league. And we all have this one little, it's big. It's big. We have this big happy family watching teams like West Virginia defy all odds. Iowa State 5-3 overall. That's not great. That's mediocre. It's really solid for Iowa State, who struggled historically, but 4-1 in Big 12 play puts them in a spot to possibly go to the Big 12 championship. Oklahoma State at 4-1. They lost to South Alabama 33-7. And I don't bring that up as a knock on Oklahoma State. I bring it up as, look how impressive it is that your team has done this season. That is something to bask in. The fact that you came back from something a debacle so massive as to lose to that team in a blowout and now be in the conversation for a Big 12 championship. There are these schools, West Virginia, Iowa State, Oklahoma State, were in the maybe we should fire our coach boat a month ago, and now could all have a shot at the Big 12 title, and two of them could play each other. Oklahoma State could play Iowa State in a I almost fired my head coach bowl. I know neither of them almost fired their head coach. Just want to throw that part out there. But again, weeks ago, we were saying, what if it's time? What if they can't get it done? I don't see possible for sure, but I don't see Texas and Oklahoma making it to the Big 12 title. And now, after that loss to Kansas, there is a way. When Oklahoma State beats Texas, Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma this week. When Oklahoma State beats Oklahoma this week, we're going to look and say, oh, wow, Texas and Oklahoma are both going to miss the Big 12 championship game. When the University of Texas loses to Kansas State this week, we're going to look around and say, oh, wow, Texas isn't going to the Big 12 championship game. We, speaking on behalf of the Big 12 that exists without Texas and OU, speaking on behalf of the teams that aren't those two, now have the opportunity, the way this thing has shaken out, to knock off those two teams and send them out the door without a trip to Arlington. Having barred Texas from a trip to Arlington since before I was in college, barring Oklahoma from a trip to Arlington for the first time since my freshman year of college. Right up our alley. Sophomore year of college, maybe. Right up our alley to do. And I love it. Oklahoma State, I'm rooting for you. Iowa State, I'm rooting for you. I was wrong in my preseason predictions about Iowa State, obviously. I was wrong. I was wrong in my preseason predictions about Kansas, obviously. 6-2 after an Oklahoma win. I was right on the money. Right on the money with Kansas State, Oklahoma State. High on those two teams preseason. For Texas and OU, I was lower on both those teams. But right now, right here, right now, they could prove me by the end of this year correct. Just need them to go like 9-3, 8-4. And they are staring down the barrel of it. I love just isn't this league awesome? This has been and always will be. Come back tomorrow. We'll talk some more sports. What do you say there, pal? Huh? 10,000 subscribers. I'll shave this old head of mine by January 1st. A lot of rapid ascension there. This has been and always will be Locked On. Thanks for making it your first listen every single day. Dose Grande.